Como é que é, pessoal? Bem-vindos novamente a Undergrounds Voice, finalmente de regresso. Os meus convidados de hoje são os Petbrick. Thank you so much for being here. It's a huge honor to meet you and to receive you at Undergrounds Voice. It's the first time you're in Portugal with Petbrick. What can you expect about the show here today in Oporto and tomorrow in Lisbon?
Well, I mean, like you said, it is the first time, and I mean, it's hard to say. From our part, we expect to be a really cool show. We've been doing this show quite in a lot of places in Europe, and it's been a lot of fun, like playing a lot of the stuff from the record that we just released. So I think that's gonna be, but I guess the real surprise, it's gonna be who's gonna show up tonight, and that's, I think, the magic part of it. Like our part, it's the easy. It's like, I know we're here, but who's gonna be here? That's the real question, you know.
And you ought to come with a slightly open mind. And so, you know, if people do, I think they'll enjoy it. If they don't, they'll probably hate it and walk out.
Well, everyone knows you, both of you, from other projects, but Petbrick is not, it's still kinda, not unknown, but, you know, right? Why do you think this happened? It's kinda underground, a really underground project, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a new project for starts, and it's something that we both been kinda like trying out certain things, you know, and I think that's part of the beauty of it. It's trying certain things that work, certain things that don't work, and it's really cool. Also, the idea of doing a project with such an open mind is that we can always change things. There's no really compromise on any form, like musically, or it's the way we look at it. It's just whatever we feel like, and it's always been from day one. It was like we showed up in the studio, we threw ideas at each other, and then those ideas become songs, and then later they became a live project, and then it became a record. So it's step by step.
I think there's something really interesting about, like, you know, with just starting from the underground and building a solid fan base and people that are genuinely interested in the music, you know, rather than trying to shoot for something bigger. It's you know, it's the most gratifying way of doing something like this, is to really build something small and get it really kind of solid. And, you know, those people are the ones that are going to be like the most honest as well in the underground, and they'll tell you if it's good or they'll tell you if it's bad, and you know, that's a really good way, because we kind of learn how to do this project. You know, it's like, oh, we're doing a gig, right? Okay, how? And so over the last kind of year and a half of doing gigs, the show has changed, and we've learned and listened to what people have said, and, you know, it's a really good way of, you know, and you forget, I think, when you've been in other projects, how much you can improve by just doing something over and again and listening to, you know, oh yeah, I like it, you know, definitely. It's like, you know, Rocket, who released our record, have been really kind of like great, just feeding back what they think, and, you know, we listen sometimes we don't listen, but you know, it's good to have that relationship, and that exists in the underground far more than it does at a bigger level, I think.
At the overground.
On the overground, I was gonna say that. I was like,
Well, it's really hard to define your sound. It's not metal, it's not electronic, it's not rock, it's not experimental. It's kind of mix of everything. Can you say that Petbrick is kind of a place where you can be free enough to do stuff that you never did, for example, in Sepultura, and you never did in Big Lab before? Can you say that?
I think also you can say the opposite. You know, I think there is all those elements in there. So I guess it's both.
I
think it's both. You know what I mean? And the free that you mentioned, it's really important. But the fact that it's not, again, it's a no rule.
Yeah.
And that's also something that I find quite exciting about this. It's not that we lay certain rules that we're not supposed to do with Petbrick, and then sometimes naturally something that Wayne has from his past, it comes through, or from my past it comes through, and it's not us forcing certain situations, it's just part of us, and I think that's how it should be. It's not
conscious, is it, at all?
Yeah.
And so I think the elements of the music have always been in both of us, but just the combination of the two of us create this new thing. And I guess it's, we didn't plan on going, oh, we really like the sound of this, let's try and sound like this. You just like, oh, hey man, like, let's hang out, let's write some music, and this came out, and then it's like, well, that's we've got a sound, I guess. And people are always looking these days more and more and more, to try and understand something through genres and subgenres, and I guess it's kind of unusual to find yourself down something where someone don't really understand where that's come from or what that sounds like, but that's great. But it wasn't we weren't like, let's create something original. That wasn't the thought process.
Yeah, but it's funny because the other day I walked into a shop in London and I was like, I'm gonna see if they have our record here, and I didn't know where to look. And I was like walking around, I was like, where this record's gonna be located? So that was a funny one, because I was like, okay,
it's true. Wow.
That's really cool.
Because I remember, like, the first times I saw the record on stores, they were on the new releases. That was easy to find. But now I'm like, it's buried somewhere in between. I don't think they have a weird music section here.
No, maybe avant-garde if you're lucky.
But they don't do that. No. So it was a tough one. Yeah. But then a friend of mine found, but I forgot to ask which pile it was. But that was.
It was in there somewhere.
It was there.
Well, the normal for a band is to release an album with 10 or 12 songs. That's not how I look for your album. I look for maybe an experience with 40 minutes or something like that. It's not an album with single songs. It's an experience. It's a whole experience. Do you agree with me?
I don't think it was planned that way.
Again, it wasn't thought out that much, you know. But again,
although I think with the Deaf Kids, we've just done a collaboration record which will be coming out later this year. With a band called Deaf Kids, and that was kind of pieced together with that in mind. So I think maybe again we've learned from our own experience, where you're like, oh, this can be a bit of a journey, and like the live show definitely has become that. Like, it's kind of difficult to sometimes people have come up to, we played the same show twice, and they're like, I really love that new song. It's like, hey, we played that last time. Because it's a bit of a, live, it's a bit of a trip. On record, I guess maybe because we'd done a couple of gigs by then, we were like, oh, let's try and get that feeling and a bit of curation going on in the flow of the record. But I guess, you kind of, with the type of record it is, where it's going from something like Radiation Facial, which is just like full on like Ministry grind industrial stuff, to then something like I don't know, like Coming, or one of those tracks, which is just a bit more kind of John Carpenter atmospheric. You've got to think about the way one song ends and one starts to get it to make sense. So I don't think it was the plan, but it kind of happened that way.
Beside all these experiences in your sound, we can see and hear some kind of punk spirit, critical subject. You already talked about Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro. Do you need to use your music to do that?
Well, it's not really user music, but I think it's important. I always felt that it's important to voice certain things, because I believe that sometimes the imagery or certain sounds that you create can be taken completely in a weird direction by certain people. So I think it's good to have a bit of an opinion,
context,
or of context there, so it doesn't create that weird thing of like we had examples of many bands or that use a certain imagery, and then they become all these fans of like right wing. They have this following of this. So I guess by putting certain things within, of course, I think it's also important not to become politically extreme to the point that it's a pain in the ass, where you don't talk about anything but just politics. But I also like to throw a few spices in there, like a song like Gringo Liquor, which was something that we felt at that time with the guest that we had, which is Mutado Pintado, which is an American guy who lives in London, and which is one of the most anti-Trump guys that I ever met. He does a post a day against Trump on every social media of his, and so it was quite intense to have him to play Trump on that track. So that was it. And then of course, like every time I speak about Brazil situation with Bolsonaro and the rise of Brexit and all these things, I try to voice the way I feel about it. But again, I let people have their own thoughts. I'm not like preaching or teaching anything. It's just how I believe that my music should be an extreme force, an extreme energy, but also it's important to see who you're targeting and what kind of crowd you want to have at your show. I wanted to have a safe crowd where women can come to the show, or someone that want to dress whatever they like, and not be threatened by some crazy extremist whatever, you know,
bro metal douchebag,
or something like that, you know, or whatever, skinhead, right wing. So that's why I try to voice that, so eliminates a bit of this miscommunication.
How's being the feedback of this album from the fans, from the press, from everyone?
Like I think people with an open mind have really liked it. There's definitely a couple of, you know, like we were aware, I think, that we were going to pick up some metal kind of criticism that came, but so
but
what?
That's normal.
You know, like I think it's good.
I think the most important thing is this. When we're playing live, that's the feedback, and for me that's the only feedback. Really, if I read something online, and that go both ways. If it's something too positive or too negative, it doesn't affect me that much. This affect me going to play a gig and seeing what kind of reaction. Like we had some amazing shows on this Petbrick gigs that we did so far, that I can say like, yes, this is the feedback that I need. You know, for me that's the important thing. All the other stuff, it's cool because we do get some appreciation from different people, but I think the real deal in for me, it's the live show. You know, that's when I can go like, this album, it's making sense now, man. Like when you go on stage, and like for example, we did the London with some of our guests. We had like Duet from Integrity coming, you know, not even on stage because he was on the ground, and he had the whole crowd going crazy. He was getting punched, and like it was insane. And then we had this magical moment where Lima came on stage, and it was all calm. So it was like those kind of things for me. It shows how cool this record was, because it was built with this atmosphere. But then, like, to do this live, it was like, and then again, like us going to Holland to a complete different, you know, playing a festival which was like completely different styles of music, and pulling this whole thing off, just the two of us. That was super important for me also, to have that sense of like, okay, we can also do this with all those people. So it's like, it's a good combination. Yeah,
I think, you know, like the Le Guess Who festival that we played was so like, because I don't know, I kind of feel it's like, yeah, it's a small project, it's relatively unknown, that's a big festival, and there was kind of a lot of people, and yeah, just you're like, whoa, is anyone actually going to come and see it? Does anyone know about this? Is anyone going to come and see it? And then just when there's like more people in the room at the end than there was at the beginning, that's it for me. You know, like I can take that as just like, okay, the room didn't empty. We're doing something okay, you know, and that's kind of how I, you know, definitely that's the way I read something. It's like if people stick around and watch it and they enjoy it, then we're doing something right, which feels great.
In the majority of your interviews and stuff like that, you're always being asked about the love or hate from Petbrick, from your friends, from the other project and stuff like that. In my opinion, it doesn't make sense, because if you cared about all this feedback, probably Petbrick wouldn't exist, right? For me, for me, an artist is what he do, and not it's not a style of music. Do you agree with me? I mean, you can release a rap album someday. You can release a Kizomba album someday,
and you still release a rap album.
Wow, you don't know about it?
Oh man!
Wow. You're producing it.
Oh, right, okay, perfect. Yeah,
you can do it someday, and you'll still be Igor Cavallari, and you'll still be Wayne.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like listening too much. Of course, there is constructive things that you can hear from certain people, but listening too much, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. Sepultura wouldn't start it in 1984 with me and my brother, because in those days, we had nothing but hate from all the people. Nobody liked what we did, so. Petbrick, you know, I mean, it would be something that if me and Wayne at one point to stop and be like, okay, should we do this? Because people are gonna think we wouldn't do it. So there's nothing that doesn't cross our minds at any point.
I think, and like you say, that's just been our musical history. It's just like you just do what you do, and you do it well.
You do it.
And you know, it's at the front of your mind at that moment in time. And that's kind of and you don't really care about what people think. It's great when people like it, but I would still do it even if they didn't like it. You know? I'm one of those weirdos that likes listening to their own music, because you're like, hey, you know, I created this because it's something I wanted to hear, and I want it to sound this way because I like the way that sounds, you know, kind of from mixing the music and all of that. It's I'm kind of, I do it for as, you know, as much as like hanging out with Igor, as myself, you know, that's where the music comes from, that relationship, and if people happen to like it, great. And if they're gonna tell me to not do it, then they can fuck off. You know?
That's the spirit. Well, finally, thank you so much for being here. It's a huge honor to meet you once again.
Thank you.
Last words for the Petbrick fans, Portuguese fans, and Underground's Voice viewers.
I've got nothing to say. Just listen to the record. I mean, that's it. You know, like that's how you get to know us.
I mean, from my part, I always had like a really cool relationship with Portugal from all my years. So it's good to be back here with Petbrick. So it's
I see that was much better than what I just said. You've done this a lot more than me.
But I mean, it's true. I mean, many times to Porto and many places in Portugal, so I'm happy to be here again, especially bringing this to Portugal, which is such a special project, so thank you.
Always welcome. Malta, obrigado por terem visto. Underground Voice volta em breve. Hoje foram os Petbrick. Game back.